You guys see this shit? We're doing illegal extrajudicial murders in international waters these days. We're so back. American empire is so back. Yeah, we shot a little, like, suspected drug running boat out in international waters that came out from Venezuela. Do we know that was a drug vessel? No. I mean, it wasn't proven in a court of law. You're not, like, legally allowed to attack civilian vessels like this, so, you know, whatever. Venezuela says it's AI generated. I don't believe it's AI generated. How do we even get a hold of this footage? Dude, they broadcasted it. We keep doing war crimes, and the State Department is like, here you go. Yeah, they brag about it. Not the first time they've done that. Everything I don't like is AI. The government didn't say it's AI. The government is bragging that they did the war crime. They're happy about it. They're proud of it. The Navy is out there shooting random civilian vessels, narco or otherwise. If the Nazis had cell phones, we'd be having walkthroughs of Auschwitz. Oh, for sure, for sure. The Nazis' favorite YouTubers would be, you know, walking through the death camp, taking selfies and, you know, doing mocking expressions on camera. More grand jurors rejecting indictment requests. Very nice, very nice. The Venezuelan government denying it happened is stupid. They'd probably gain support if they made hay out of this to rile up anti-American sentiment. I think the Venezuelan government doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that the enormously powerful U.S. Navy is just off the coast and is, in fact, randomly shooting at civilian vessels. I think that, like, for the sake of national civility and for projecting an image of strength, they probably don't want to acknowledge that. Good overview? What is this channel?
With the United States now having killed 11 Venezuelans, albeit alleged members of a cartel, one wonders if we might soon be adding another state to the board. And, of course, that will have spillover effects to the conflict on the minds of everyone. This is the USS Lake Erie. Is she named for the most beautiful lake in the world?
Okay, this might take a little while to get through. I don't think we're going to invade Venezuela, but it's possible we might treat them a little bit like the Houthis, you know? Like we might set a couple of naval carrier groups right off their shores and bombard them. That would be the extreme case. We're definitely not putting boots in the ground.
With this.
On the Venezuela vessel strike, what legal authority were you guys working under, and will there be an after report on the strike?
Well, I'm sure there's going to be an after report. I mean, the legal authority, and I want to talk about these kids, is that there are people who are bringing literal terrorists who are bringing deadly drugs into our country, and the President of the United States ran on a promise of stopping this poison from coming into our country. Another question?
Right, so no legal authority at all. Gotcha. Venezuela currently has the most oil in the world. This will not change soon due to the embargoes. We're not invading them for their oil. For one, Venezuela oil sucks. And for two, like, to a large extent, they already benefit from, like, a broader refining process. It's not the relationship we have there. Also, we're not doing boots in the ground. It would be a much more difficult invasion than Iraq or Afghanistan. We're projected to completely run out of oil in 47 years. Yeah, people have been saying that for ages. People have been saying that for ages. Who cares? It's fake. Oil's probably a renewable resource. It bubbles up from the ground. If God didn't want us to use oil, why would he put it there? And if he didn't want us to use it, why would he make it non-renewable? Come on. Come on. More news.
Tonight, the White House releasing this dramatic video of the U.S. blowing up a boat in the southern Caribbean. President Trump says it was carrying drugs from Venezuela and that the strike killed 11 members of the notorious gang Tren de Aragua, or TDA.
Ooh, you hear that? All right. Put a little bit of tahini and cumin on that pronunciation.
We have a lot of drugs pouring into our country, coming in for a long time. And these came out of Venezuela. We took it out.
Last month, the Pentagon deployed 3 guided missile destroyers to international waters near Venezuela after President Trump designated several drug cartels, as well as TDA, foreign terrorist organizations. The U.S. did pull off a large-scale prisoner swap with Venezuela this summer. Now tensions with Venezuelan leader Nicolás Maduro are rapidly escalating.
The Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel.
Tonight, the president saying no U.S. forces were hurt.
Who was that guy? Who was the other one? What was the name of the other one? Come on. The guy who proclaimed he was the legitimate leader. John Guaido? John Guaido, yeah. Juan Guaido.
Maduro has claimed that the U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean is aimed at overthrowing his government, and he's deployed troops along his borders. Tonight, a senior White House official...
If we collapse the Venezuelan government, by the way, every single country in the Americas is going to be hit with a refugee crisis that'll basically be like the Syrian war refugee crisis over in Europe, you know? Like an actual collapse of the Venezuelan government, to remove Maduro and remove the legitimizing framework that keeps the narco cartels from completely controlling things, would cause a civilizational collapse there that would, without a doubt, massively worsen the crisis.
Is downplaying any possibility of the U.S. invading Venezuela, but says the president will use any means necessary to tackle drug cartels. Tom?
All right, Gabe Gutierrez leading us off with that new video tonight. We thank you for watching, and remember...
Don't thank me. It's my job.
You're looking at video shared by President Trump that his administration says shows the military striking a boat from Venezuela allegedly carrying drugs. The president says 11 were killed in the attack and that no Americans were injured. Well, tensions have been rising between these countries. The United States has been increasing its presence near Venezuela to combat drug cartels. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said the U.S. is pursuing a regime change in his country through military threats. CBS News.
That's not necessarily wrong. I mean, Maduro is a very bad leader. I don't think we have anything better in mind for Venezuela, of course.
Pentagon reporter Eleanor Watson joins us now. So, Eleanor, we just saw the video that just came in. How serious is this U.S. military strike against this drug vessel departing from Venezuela?
Well, Jericho, what we know is from what the president posted and from the Pentagon, who confirmed that there was a precision strike done against a drug cartel today. President Trump posted that dramatic video showing a strike destroying a go-fast boat, which is essentially a large speed...
Go-fast boat. Nearly 8 million Venezuelans have fled or left Venezuela since 2015. About 85% of this population remains in host countries in the region, primarily Colombia. Is it really as many as 8 million? I thought they lost like 3 million. According to their population graph here, it kind of looked... So they were 31 million, and now they're down to 28.4. But there's also natural population growth happening while there's a decline here. It's like 3 million or so, right? Not great. Here's Ukraine. You can see what happened here. Colombia, however, Colombia's just been booming, man.
Boat. According to the president, 11 members of a Venezuelan drug cartel on their way to potentially smuggle drugs towards the U.S. were killed in that strike. That marks an escalation in this administration's fight against drug cartels. Earlier this year, the administration designated several of them as foreign terrorist organizations and vowed to go after them harder. Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke about that today while he was traveling. Let's listen.
Estimates have risen to 7.1 million by October 2022. Jeez. Yeah, okay, pretty big. If there was a total collapse of the Venezuelan regime, it makes me wonder how many of those people would end up making their way to America, especially in this government. I feel like a lot of them would just go to Colombia or Brazil or whatever. Well, maybe not Brazil, because that's a different language, but you know.
The president's been very clear that he's going to use the full power of America, the full might of the United States to take on and eradicate these drug cartels, no matter where they're operating from and no matter how long they've been able to act with impunity. Those days are over.
So Secretary Rubio indicating there that these operations might continue as the military continues to surge more hardware towards the area near Venezuela.
And what intel do you have on these ships Venezuelan President Maduro alleges are targeting his country?
There are about 8 U.S. ships either near Venezuela already or on their way, which would mark, when they're all there, the largest U.S. military buildup in South America in about 3 decades.
Yes.
What's included in this recent ramp up is 3 different destroyers, which are all armed with about dozens of missiles, and ships as part of a Marine Expeditionary Unit, which carries about 4,000 sailors and...
If it's just destroyers and not a carrier group, then it seems likely we're not looking to strike inland, and they're probably just going to take pot shots at narco drug running boats, or alleged narco drug running boats. We're essentially treating these cartels the same way that we treat Al-Qaeda, right? By designating them a foreign terrorist organization. We give ourselves legal permission to kill them at will. Yeah, we're treating them like pirates, basically. which isn't entirely wrong. There is like a terroristic element to what they do, but I don't think the U.S. government should be extrajudicially executing, foreigners at a whim. So, yeah. If it's just destroyers, we're not going to be striking inland. We'll see how it goes. I don't know, though.
Marines. Those ships are surging to the area as the administration is putting more pressure on Maduro. Just last month, the State Department announced a $50 million reward for any information leading to the capture or arrest of Maduro. Maduro, in response, has deployed or is deploying about 15,000 troops to Venezuela's borders to respond to what he calls the greatest threat to the South American continent in about 100 years.
All right.
Don't know what he's going to do with those. Okay, last one that I want to see. Sorry, just want to see the coverage.
U.S. military.
So far, none of these media outlets have questioned the legality of what Trump is doing. By the way,
strike on an alleged drug cartel boat with ties to Venezuela. It's escalating already rising tensions in the region. President Trump celebrated the attack by releasing this video, which shows the moment a boat was blown up in the southern Caribbean. 11 on board were killed. Administration officials say the boat left Venezuela loaded with drugs on a well-known drug trafficking route. The Trump administration has set its sights on the Venezuelan president, accusing him of heading a drug cartel in his country, calling it a terrorist organization.
The president's been very clear that he's going to use the full power of America. And no matter how long they've been able to act with impunity, those days are over.
Joining me now to discuss, Mariana Atencio, a freelance journalist who actually fled Venezuela to the U.S. almost 17 years ago. Oh. Welcome to CNN this morning.
Adi, thank you for having me.
Okay, so we've seen an actual military strike, and this was happening as Nicolas Maduro was kind of already on edge, trying to use this war rhetoric. Can you give me some context of how this escalated so quickly?
So, Adi, we have seen a level of tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela that we haven't seen in years. Essentially, Trump has mobilized around 8 boats, a submarine, and almost 5,000 Marines to the southern Caribbean to combat drugs that leave through Venezuela. Venezuela, because of its geographic location, is the perfect transit country for these drugs to leave for Europe and the United States. So it's not a producer, it's a transit country. But things really escalated as the Trump administration, plain and simple, named Nicolas Maduro the leader of this drug cartel that uses the full power of the executive and the military to transport these drugs. The DEA has been kicked out of the country since 2005. And as the rhetoric escalates, we're seeing these tensions build up in the Southern Caribbean as both nations respond.
Can you give us a sense of what international community thinks about this? Do people say the same about Maduro in terms of the drug industry there, as you said, being a hub for transport?
All Venezuelans, Audie, have known for years that the Maduro regime is a narco cartel, that they lead essentially...
Yeah, okay, I was wondering for a second if we were going to have a conversation about the legality of this, or like, hey, has history shown that we typically stabilize regions that rely on organized crime by killing their leaders and, like, destabilizing their economy? But no, obviously not. Why would we do that?
A cartel called the Cartel of the Suns, and that is because of the sun insignia emblazoned in military uniforms. Latin America and the Caribbean, however, is very divided along ideological lines. So you will see countries like Colombia, like Mexico, not have such a hard...
Vosh, Maduro totally won legit, but 8 million people left Venezuela after the election. I get U.S. bad sometimes, but really? When the f did I say Maduro won legit in the 2024 election? When did I say... Did I say that? Wasn't Maduro engaging in, like, really obvious cheating tactic? Like extremely obvious. Why? Where? Silberg Chiba. I just want to know from YouTube chat, where the hell did you get that impression? When did I say Maduro totally won legit?
stance against the Maduro regime. Also think about that this is a country that still produces some oil, so they tend to buy loyalties around the region, and we saw that last year. Maduro's not a legitimate president. He's a de facto dictator. He stole elections last year, and the international community didn't pressure him and his regime enough to produce the evidence of his supposed win, because again, many of these countries always vote along ideological lines, but we know.
What? Wait, what is this framing? Other countries didn't pressure the Venezuelan government to produce the legitimacy of their results because they vote along. I don't understand what the point being made is.
This is sort of a rogue nation. 8 million people, including myself and many of my family members, Audie, have left because of the humanitarian crisis there. So you're seeing also a country that has become the #1 source of asylum seekers to the United States. So for the Trump administration, this is not only a drug problem, this is also a migration problem. And these are, as you know, President Trump's top domestic priorities.
Okay, so all of the news media is completely on board with this. Gotcha. Okay. What's the legal term for a rogue nation? One that does stuff America doesn't like. Definitely not Israel, though. Trump is mad that international partners didn't join the attempted coup in 2020. Yeah, you can simultaneously believe that Maduro cheats like in his elections, but also that Guaido was a coup attempt. Like, that's not, I think that's the only reasonable pair of beliefs to have. I think if you believe anything other than both of those things, you're insane. He is not a good leader. The correct position is Maduro should be couped. No, that wouldn't work, man. If the entire listen, we've learned this before. If the entire it's like Afghanistan. The moment we left Afghanistan, it became Taliban property again. Why? Because we never meaningfully challenged the underlying power networks in the country. You know? Iraq fell under Iranian control as soon as we more or less like divested ourselves from it as well. It just doesn't work. Regime change doesn't work, you know? What you need to do is give them a better path, a better option. You need to provide like slowly incentive and structures that allow for development and growth, you know? A lot of America used to be run by organized crime. When did it stop? Well, to a large extent, the reason it stopped is because through a really complicated and decades-long process of both policing and business structures incentives, it just became better business in a lot of communities to go legit. Like, Vegas used to be all the mob. Now it's gone legit. Now, sure, Vegas is still shady as hell, but like, even if Vegas was made less shady, it would be better business in Vegas to be a legitimate business than to run it as the mob. It would be more dangerous and less profitable to run it as the mob. In Venezuela, as is the case in Afghanistan, the way everything's set up, it just makes more sense to operate as a crime unit, as a terrorist cell, as a narco cell, whatever else, you know, to operate as a cartel. You need to build structures that allow that to not be the case. Usually these structures are provided and incentivized through international inequality, right? Like, for example, opium harvesting in Afghanistan, or the inequality caused by decades and decades, and in their case, like a full century of wealth extraction and adjacent cultural humiliation as the West sort of occupied the Middle East, which led to the Wahhabist movement and like a bunch of radical Islam, blah, blah, blah. Not to mention Osama bin Laden and 9/11. I mean, all this stuff goes down the line, right? But the reason Venezuela is the way it is isn't like just magically it turned out that way. It's because there's a huge amount of wealth inequality between Latin America and America, which means that in a lot of places in Latin America, it's just like better business to run drugs up north than it is to do anything local. Like, local is too unstable. And hey, guess who contributed to the instability in Latin America? This guy, me specifically. No, the United States did. That doesn't mean the reason Venezuela is the way it is because, like, America directly made it that way or anything. It's more like, you know, in Latin America, things haven't been very stable, and we have contributed to a long-held sort of distrust in the ability for the democratic process to produce good results. And right now, the most popular leader in all the Americas is Bukele in El Salvador. You get what I mean? In the long run, regime change doesn't seem to work. You need to build structures and incentives that allow a country to be in a better place for more people when it's gone straight, so to speak. We'll see how it goes. I actually don't know what the last direct intervention in Venezuela from the United States was. When was the last time, okay, apart from Guaido, I mean like CIA stuff, Cold War stuff, when was the last time we got directly involved? It's been decades. It's been decades for anything super, super heavy-handed, I think, apart from 2020. But our involvement in 2020 has always been really, we kind of half-assed that one, I feel. That was a really half-assed coup. We didn't really commit that much to that. It makes me wonder if Hillary Clinton had been president back in 2020, that coup might have worked, huh? Like, it happened under Trump. Trump is very stupid. Especially in his first term, he couldn't get anything done. So I wonder if under Hillary Clinton, like, Guaido would have won, and that would be the timeline we'd be in. I doubt it would have changed much, like, in the long run. I don't think so. Obama was warming relations with Maduro, which Trump killed. Obama didn't exactly do the best with Maduro either, did he? Wasn't there... We're a little bit behind my, or beyond my time frame as a political commentator, I suppose. I'd have to look more into it. I'd have to look into it. Most significant recent instance being a direct connection to a coup attempt occurring in 2002. Here, hold on one second. Obama opened them up to the global markets. Obama has always been, and this is one of the things you can fairly give him credit for because he did the same thing with Iran and Cuba, relatively good at detente with so-called enemy nations. Like Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, there are examples where I think he specifically, more so than Hillary Clinton would have, was willing to open up relations. Russia as well. Well, they that up. Russia that up with the annexation of Crimea. But yes, prior to that, yeah, if anything, he was too nice to them afterwards. Here, I want to learn. 2002, America coup, Venezuela. A failed coup d'etat on April 11th, 2002 saw Hugo Chavez ousted from office for 47 hours before being returned to power. Yeah, I haven't read on this one at all. Chavez's approval ratings dropped to around 30%. Emergency power... Hey, does this sound familiar? With many businesses, church, and media leaders being opposed to Chavez's use of emergency powers to bypass the National Assembly and institute significant government changes, arguing they were increasingly authoritarian. Venezuelan Federation of Chamber of Commerce President Pedro Carmona was declared interim president. During his brief rule, the National Assembly and Supreme Court were both dissolved, and the country's 1999 constitution was declared void. Yeesh. In Caracas, Chavez supporters surrounded the presidential palace, seized television stations, and demanded his return. Carmona resigned the same night. The pro-Chavez presidential guard retook Miraflores without firing a shot, leading to the removal of the Carmona government and the reinstallation of Chavez as president. Huh. I guess that worked out pretty well for him in the long run, right? And to what extent was America involved in this? What did we do? I assume, backed the other guy. U.S. knowledge and warnings. U.S. had learned details of a potential coup. Generals who opposed Chavez notified U.S. officials of the impending coup, with one official noting they were not seeking U.S. approval, but simply providing advanced knowledge. Trade Union Organization, Ambassador Shapiro. U.S. Embassy in Venezuela stated that it had later informed Chavez of a potential coup, though Chavez ignored their warnings. Were we involved? To what extent were we involved? What did we do? It seems like we weren't involved in the planning then. It seems like I'd need to read more about this. It seems complicated. I don't want to, like, just rush through it. Still worked out pretty well for Chavez, right? This was the guy who attempted the coup. All right. After the coup, he was placed in house arrest, but was able to gain asylum in the Colombian embassy after an anti-Chavez protest drew away his security detail. Later, he was granted asylum in Colombia, where he has worked as a tenured lecturer at the Sergio Arboleda University. Okay. He's 84 years old and still alive today. At the end of the first section at the top of the wiki page, it details how Chavez later took credit and said he staged the coup attempt. Crafty boy. Chavez would afterwards admit he deliberately provoked a crisis with his actions, declaring what happened with PDVSA was necessary when I grabbed the whistle in an Allo Presidente and started to fire people as provoking the crisis. Okay. Maybe not directly planned by him, but more like he was instigating it or trying to sort of like provoke a crisis. Okay. It's okay. It's interesting. It's interesting stuff. It's interesting, that's all. I don't think he's like Trump. Chavez was a smart guy. Not a good guy, but he was smart. You know, he did a decent job kind of wrangling the country, I think. Better than Maduro. Maduro's done a way worse job. Way worse job.